Okay, today's podcast is on Artho Economics, Foundation and Public Service Announcement, Chapter 5, Part 2. This is on the tried and true law practice of qui tam and or champerity law, the economics of self-defense against corruption. Lawsuits and prosecutions drain government treasuries, tax-paying commoners, and the world's economies versus justice's positive cash flow against corruption's qui tam and or champerity laws, checks and balances, funding county, state, nations, and international treasuries. Courts that allow this positive cash flow of the tried and true law practice to be filed within jurisdictions known to have reputable judges who rule according to the rule of law, the Constitution, their oaths of office, and or their profession as an attorney, and not on the whims of a politician, bold opinions, or the mentality of lynch mobs. In other words, for prosecution's collections into that county's treasury and up to 30% awarded to the victims, the closest funding is the quickest funding returned to the tax-paying commoners, the victims, and economically stimulates that county's local economy. Qui tam prosecution's collections into state's treasury and the 30% to the victims, the state funding will eventually return to the tax-paying commoners, the victims, and economically stimulates that state's economy. For prosecution's collections into nation's treasury, 30% to the victims, that nation's funding could take years to eventually return to the original tax-paying commoners, the original victims, but it economically stimulates that nation's economy and finances that nation's import-export trade. For prosecutions, collections into international treasuries, 30% to the victims, the international funding could take decades before returning to the original tax-paying commoners, the original victims, but it economically stimulates international economies and finances international import-export trade. On filedevidence.com, Artho Economics, Chapter 1, Tax/Fine to Discourage Corruption and Handouts. We, the tax-paying commoners, are getting tired of paying for handouts to corruption, squandering the tax-paying commoners' funding of the courts, who are hell-bent on prosecuting, and punishing the victims out of business to inevitably collapse the economy as economic treason, versus reputable courts qui tam 30% to the victims and keep the tax-paying commoner victims in business, plus the 70% into government treasury keeps governments in the business of governing. The yin and yang of checks and balances, funding, fines, retribution owned for each count, each and every cause and effect counts, that in fact, under the rule of law, are still owed to government treasuries and to the victims. Qui tam filed within state, national, and international jurisdictions, federal courts, applicable filings will be confidentially sealed for 60 days, providing 60 days for county officials to enforce the Constitution, rule of law, and their fiduciary obligations that are still owed to the county's treasury and the victims thereof. Qui tam enforces the fiduciary duties of government officials their constitutional oath of office and or profession as attorney while releasing all present and future liabilities thereof. When negotiating with county, state, national, or international quitam, the choices of the government officials, reputable quitam law firms, and or individual taxpaying companies themselves, quitam or champerity law chooses which jurisdictions are the best to file within. Quitam and champerity law chooses which treasuries are the best to be funded. Quitam and champerity law chooses which victims' court exhibits, such as the 10 exhibits already on filedevidence.com, and with many more coming soon, that were in fact illegally filed and recorded in Randall County, Texas courthouses, land and title records. Randall County officials, your reputation is on the line, and it would be financially foolish not to cash in on key TAM checks and balances. The fiat paper money's inflation affects us all. Taxpaying commoners are running out of money. Government treasuries are running out of money. This is an out. So that everyone has a chance for the highest return on investment, the best positive cash flow for prosecutions, collections, on each and every count, each and every cause and count, within the best chosen jurisdictions. Things turn out best for those making the best of how things turn out.